All right, let's talk about The Tax Collector. This movie stars Bobby Soto as David, Shia LaBeouf as Creeper, Cynthia Carmona as Alexis, and George Lopez as Louise, and is directed by David Ayer. David Ayer, as we know, directed Fury and unfortunately got into it with Suicide Squad, but I'm not going to blame that all on him. He also directed Bright. So honestly, since Fury, I haven't really liked his track record. And here we are again at another movie of his that I'm not really too big of a fan of. So, okay, I'm going to start out with the good, and let me warn you, there's not a lot. The good of this movie is the villain. I felt that he was menacing. I felt that he had control. Conejo was really intimidating. And honestly, for me, while I was watching the movie, that was the most exciting part of the movie, was what is Conejo going to do next? How is he going to track down David, Bobby Soto's character? For me, that was the best part of the movie, was that adrenaline, if you could call it that. I guess that excitement about what's going to happen next. So I was really enjoying the villain. I thought he made a decent villain. But all in all, this is a mess. Let me start first with the editing. The editing is just horrendous. Scenes jump from scene to scene to scene. I mean, these cuts are really not neatly laid down in the timeline. When I was watching this movie, I can imagine an Adobe Premiere sequence or a Final Cut Pro sequence and just see all these big, bad cuts. Like, gosh, scenes would just jump from one to another without warning. And it was just like, all right, 1 minute we're here, 1 minute we're collecting the taxes, the next we're back at home. The next we're collecting taxes again. The next is a brief flashback. Like, there's just so much in this movie. And that's weird to say about a movie that's only an hour and a half, but there's so much bad editing here that it feels incredibly jarring. I think even any average viewer could agree that it jumps all over the place, which introduces pacing issues, and there was a lot of that where I wouldn't say the pacing was as bad, but the editing just threw it off so hard, where you would be in the middle of the scene digging deep into what's going on in this scene, and then it would cut right into something else. It's like, okay, first we're collecting taxes, then we're going back home, then we're going to cousin's house for this, that, and the other. Like, let's just follow a cohesive sequence all the way through. It did not do that for me. So the editing is probably the king of the problems in this movie. Now let me move on to the cast. I'm sorry, Bobby Soto. I know he's in Narcos Mexico. I haven't watched Narcos Mexico, unfortunately, which I know I need to get on that. But this was not really too good of a performance. There were a couple of times where I thought he had the opportunity to go over the top with emotion and with dynamic acting, and it didn't happen. I'm not going to spoil a moment in the movie, but there was a very emotional moment in the movie where, I mean, the character should have been like screaming. David should have been on his knees upset, and I didn't feel it. And that, to me, really kills the acting. Shia LaBeouf, I love him to death. You guys know I've loved him since Even Stevens. I've loved him in The Peanut Butter Falcon. I loved him in Honey Boy. But this performance for me, and look, I'm not going to blame it all on Shia. This wasn't his role, in my opinion. Look, I know he's played the villain. I saw Honey Boy. But I was not feeling intimidated by him like I guess he should have been, because he was called Creeper, which, quite the name to use in today's times. I would not name a character Creeper, but that's just me. He was losing the accent a couple times. Like, I heard the accent slip out, and I was just like, okay, if we want to keep this consistent LA Hispanic accent, I don't understand how it can't be cohesively kept throughout the movie. So the accent was falling in and out. Also, I feel like Creeper should have been creepy. I feel like he should have been the devil. Like, one of the guys in the trailer actually heard, he's like, what have you heard about me? I heard you're the devil. So if he's the devil, where's the devil? Like, that was one of my biggest gripes, is did not feel any sort of villainy or darkness, I want to say, from this character. I just didn't feel intimidated from Shia LaBeouf's character at all. And he's supposed to be the creeper, he's supposed to be the devil, but I didn't hear the devil, I didn't see the devil, I didn't feel the devil. So for me, not a good performance. And also, I've heard mixed things about this one, but Shia LaBeouf's white. So why does he have this LA Latin accent that just really doesn't match him as a person? I've heard from certain individuals that when you grow up around that culture, you can easily develop the accent, and I get that. But I mean, Shia LaBeouf, when we could have got somebody else, a Latin actor, to play this role, they just needed some star power. Let me move on next to the action. The action sequences in this movie are cut horrendously short. There are some really tasteful slow-mo shots when David's gang is fighting against Conejo's gang. There are some good slow-mo cuts, some cool like gun blazing action, but it's cut so short that you really don't get to savor and enjoy it. And I would say there's two scenes in this movie that are heavy gun battles. And I would say the very first one was very underwhelming. I would say the first one did not have the chops of a necessary good gunfight, and it didn't have the adrenaline of a great gunfight either. So I gotta say, out of the two gunfights in this movie, one of them was a dud. So that to me drops the action down 3 whole levels. I mean, it's just, the action really wasn't that good. And to be the tax collector and get 30 to 40 minutes in the movie without any guns going off. I'm watching a movie called The Tax Collector with a guy who has been called the devil, and we don't get any gun scenes. That to me just makes zero sense. We don't get any killing. We don't get any, shooting somebody to intimidate. We don't get any devilish moves within the first 30 to 40 minutes. And I know these guys are bad. I know they roll with gangs. I know they are tax collectors based on the drugs that are dealed and things that are arms or weapons that are dealed between David's gang and the other gangs. But to me, it just didn't feel intimidating enough. These two pretty guys are walking up to these really rugged men and they're like, give us your taxes, give us your, you owe us your cut. But at the same time, y'all ain't killing nobody. Y'all ain't pulling any gangster moves. Like, to me, this is not gangster. This ain't GG. There aren't a lot of things in the beginning to make me feel like David is the established leader of this organization, which I know he's not. But it seems to me like there aren't many opportunities for us to like sniff out how intimidating this guy is, how menacing this guy is. He's in a gang. So for me, I mean, the guy's pulling over, he's buying chocolate for fundraisers. I get that. That's cool. But like the fact that nobody gets capped, nobody really gets beat up, that to me is just, it really makes him look like a protagonist, which I know he is of the movie, but it's like, yo, you're in an LA gang. You're in an LA gang. You're supposed to be intimidating. Speaking of LA gangs, let's talk a little bit about the Bloods and their involvement in this movie. First and foremost, it was so bad, I just lost motivation for the review for a second. The Bloods were questionably loyal to Bobby Soto's character, David. I thought that it was just a little over the top how loyal they were to him without any sort of explanation. And look, maybe I wasn't paying too much attention, but there wasn't too much explanation of this unquestioned loyalty that the Bloods and their leader have for David. I thought that was just, it was like out of control to the point where in the movie the Bloods are assisting David, and that makes zero sense. I mean, without any sort of backstory explanation, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know why they would back up David and like all of them will go risk their lives if he is technically part of a rival gang. I just, that part to me kind of blew my mind at how absurd and ridiculous it was, because if you're going to be that loyal, I need to know why. And again, I'm going to backtrack and say that maybe I didn't catch it because this movie was so bad that I was out of it for most of it. So maybe it's in there somewhere and I just missed it, but If it's that small, that means it's not written well enough, and it shouldn't be just a blip. It should be something that we're reminded of. George Lopez, good actor. But what was up with the rivalry between his character Luis and Conejo? We don't know. Oh, they're just a rival gang. That's not enough of an explanation to me. There were these weird relationships in this movie that had no backstory, no explanation. And again, I will say, maybe I just missed it, but there's really not any character development in this movie. And that's a big no. And unfortunately, we don't get to hear about the past and why Conejo was the way he was. We just learned that he ran away to Mexico for 10 years and stayed out of it for a while. But why? Why? Give us some reasons why. That's the problem with this movie, is there's not enough explanation in the nitty-gritty details. The devil is in the details. So to me, this movie is all over the place. Look, I'm sorry, the unquestionable loyalties, the unquestionable rivalries was really weird. And I don't know if this was just my cut of the movie, but I didn't get subtitles during the Spanish scenes. Again, that might have just been my cut, and it might have been a easy accident, but I didn't get subtitles, so I was like, oh my god, am I missing valuable context? That might have been what happened to me. But for The Tax Collector, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. I thought that this was a very weak movie. There weren't a lot of things that could make this movie up for me. I think if Bobby Soto and Shia LaBeouf, their characters had some more fleshing out. They were more intimidating. They actually were tax collectors and went around and were capping guys and, were intimidating and beating dudes down. I think for me, that would feel more like this movie was trying to, like this movie is trying to convey. And I just didn't feel that at all. You try to glorify and make these gangsters into protagonists, and that's just shaky waters if not written well. So I gotta give it a 3 out of 10, guys. But you all let me know your thoughts down in the comments. What did you think about The Tax Collector? Were you a fan? Did you like Shia LaBeouf? And did you like Bobby Soto in this movie? Let me know down in the comments, because let me tell you guys, I was not a fan. Let me know down in the comments, guys, and we will see you next time.